Why does Sanderson matter? Why is it so exciting and why is it so important that he is not going to, and he could, that he just goes and retires. He has made all the money that he needs and more for himself, for the rest of his life here on Earth, and for his family. And yet he keeps writing, and we keep reading those books. That's what we're going to talk about. What is the relevance of this type of fantasy, and why does it matter? I do believe that Sanderson is someone who is not just here on Earth, at least according to himself, to entertain. He wants to leave a legacy. What stands out to you after what you've read?
I think you're absolutely right. He has a very clear idea of maybe what it means to be a good human being, I think, or what a good human being does while you're here to contribute towards human thriving or creating a good culture or overcoming your own flaws or your traumas or, leveling up. This is one of the things I absolutely loved. I love his characters, not only because they're relatable. You get to the end of like reading Kaladin's journey from, I cannot remember the name of the book, his first book, maybe Way of Kings. What I loved about it is how Kaladin is presented as this character that you not only follow and enjoy, there's lots of fun things that happen. You love the character. I fell in love with the character. I fell in love with who he is, who he wants to become, and how hard it is. And this is something he does brilliantly well. He did this in Skyward too. I think he creates these characters and then he stacks the deck against them. These characters never have it easy. In fact, he progressively makes it harder and harder. Their soul gets crushed more and more and more. And it gets to a point where they're absolutely up the creek without a paddle. There's no hope, right? And usually the last quarter of the book, he turns everything around, makes it all worse even more, and then reveals something more interesting. So apart from the fact that the stories themselves are always incredible, it's the characters. I think he's got this idea. Life is hard. We have to get stronger to push back on how hard life is. I think that is a message at the core of a lot of his characters. I think it's one that I believe in. I think it's one that we absolutely need. And if you're maybe like me, this is younger than you are, Father, a lot of stories don't know what to do with the fact that life is insanely hard. And I think that's why we turn to fiction. It's why we turn to quests, because we recognize that we go on quests to do something, to become something, to get something. You don't just kill a dragon just so that you can get the horde. By killing a dragon, you become a dragon killer. You are now somebody who is bigger and bolder and greater than you ever were. And you would never have done that if you'd simply stayed home and just voted for somebody to do something and enact new policies. Quests and adventures are about you going out to become something greater. His stories are about that kind of thing. I think it's very Christian. Mormonism is allied to, it's very Christian, and there's a lot of shared values and shared ideals and identity there. I think the Christian idea at the root of it is that you engage with reality, it engages with you, you become more. You don't just try to get out of it.
Well, the main protagonist of the New Testament saga, by the way, if you've never read it, it's riveting literature.
Best story in the world.
Is not a hero who fixes everything. He's not a superhero who has no flaw. Quite on the contrary. I mean, it's someone who does tremendous things, but the story is all about the suffering. It's all about him, the resistance that he encounters, but also his empathy with other people that he crosses paths with that are also met with sickness, with handicaps, with all sorts of
there's so much pain and suffering
mayhem
and hunger and oppression.
And it's not seen as a side quest. It's not seen as something, we just have to deal with that and then we'll forget about it and everybody lives happily ever after.
Right.
No, it's actually the whole story is about how do you deal with that? How do you deal with suffering? How do you deal with injustice? And it's that what makes it so relatable, because our stories, at least let me speak for myself, but they're not all success stories. There's much more hardship than you might be able to see on people's Instagram accounts, Life is not just about remote sunny islands with coconuts and nice drinks. No, for most of us, life is tough. And if it's not tough right now, it will be tough in the future. And stories help us to prepare ourselves. I love this idea of stories and fantasy being like spaces, liminal spaces, where we can rehearse life.
Yeah, I think it's
in
exactly
a safe environment.
Yeah, it's a way to field test experiences that maybe you'll never have, but you can sort of learn what is it underneath that adventure that I can take in now. That kind of a story is the kind of story that it moves hearts and souls. There's a reason why we keep telling those kinds of stories, not just because it sells tickets and, because they matter to us. They're We want to be that kind of person. I see that's something that Sanderson has all throughout his books. What are interesting ways to talk about characters that we would want to be? Let's have an adventure with those kind of people. And by the end, you close the book and wonder, I want to be like Kaladin. It would be a good day if I could be like Kaladin.
And what is what makes it for me kind of hard to read Sanderson sometimes is also its greatest strength, and that is the multitude of characters. I sometimes get very confused, especially if I have read other books in between, and I'm thinking, who was this guy again? And what did he look like? But what I love about it is that there is a little bit for everyone in there. You can very much relate to the main protagonist, but you're not obliged to, because everyone is kind of flawed in his books.
And that's what's brilliant about them.
And over time, you get to appreciate them. And sometimes people will start off and you're like, that character, seriously, why? Why is he in this book? And then you read the third book and you're like, I kind of start to appreciate this person.
Yeah.
And including some very tragic characters. There are some characters that have like a hidden pain or a hidden suffering, and we will only uncover that much, much later. And once you understand what that person has gone through, or that character had gone through, not all human characters, then retroactively you start to understand why that person behaved and maybe was so unsympathetic in the first book, because there was all this suffering underneath. And now that I get that, I reevaluate that life. And for me, that is a super important lesson for all of us.
I think
we are so quick to judge.
Yeah.
And we're so quick to also let other people know about how we think about them or how we think about others. But we only know the surface of people. We only know the outside.
Yeah.
And stories allow us to go through the exercise of empathy.
Yeah, of getting into someone's shoes, entering into someone's life and their experience on their own terms, in their own experience. You wouldn't wake up on a Tuesday and have an experience like that. You have to do something special, like pick up a book or watch a movie to practice that kind of empathy. I think novels are a form of soul technology. I heard it described that way recently. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. It's so cool because in the process of reading a book, you become somebody else. And then on the last page, there's kind of a closing invitation. Are you going to go back to being you? Or are you going to think or do or be someone different? I think that's fantastic.
A good story is about the protagonist changing.
Yeah.
But it's just as much the good stories, and this is, I think, why Sanderson is so popular and has been popular for many years now, is because you also change. You're not the same. You have learned about empathy. At the end of the Mistborn trilogy, I was mad at myself for having judged characters in the book when I read the first one. Because I was like, I didn't know this about that character. Please go to legendfiction.com. Follow Legend Fiction on all social media accounts. We have a Substack. There is just so much. If you've never heard of Legend Fiction, this is your cue to go check it out. We would love to get in touch with you. And by all means, let me know and let Dominic know in the comments your thoughts on what we just discussed.